All right, students, welcome to part 2 of chapter 4.4. We will be discussing more difficult questions in part 2, part 3, and also part 4. Okay, and the questions in part 4 will be quite difficult. It's really difficult actually, to be honest with you. And the marks can easily shoot up to exceeding 5 marks. So in that sense, we will move on to part 2 and part 3 first for this video. This video will cover part 2 and part 3. Okay, and I mentioned again, I'll only solve the circled questions here, all right? And then please be prepared with a paper or a notebook next to you so that you can write down important things. Because I tend to say important things right away. So I hope that you can actually follow along. Just follow along. All right, forgot to start my video. But anyways, it's all right. Okay, so for part 2 question, I will be solving 1A, 1B, and 2A. Okay, so I'll solve 1A down here. Okay, I'll solve it down here, yeah. Okay. Let me get the question. Okay, I'll try to write it here so it can be seen easily. All right, solve the inequality. This 1A. Solve the inequality. Okay, the first keyword is inequality. As you don't see an equal sign here, you don't see this equal sign. What you see is a greater sign, or a lesser sign, or greater equals to sign, or lesser equals to sign. So these are the signs, right, that does not show equality. You must understand what is the difference between equality as well as inequality. Equality, right, basically means the left is equals to the right, means they are the same. You get what I mean? But inequality has a range of answers. What do I mean by range of answers? Means this thing on the left, x, for example, can be, okay, maybe let's just say equals to 2. Okay, just say I want to make a statement of x is not only 2. X can be between 2 to 4. Between 2 to 4. So I cannot be writing is equals to 2 or x equals to 4. Why? Because it can be 3, it can be 2.1, as long as it is from 2 to 4. Correct or not? So the correct way to write that is actually basically we write a range. What is the range? Which is we use the sign of inequality to help us out. X can be either smaller or equals to 4, or it can be either bigger or equals to 2, which sets the range. It can actually take up value from 2 to actually 4. Any value it can take up. So these are the importances of using inequality signs, which I hope that you can get used to it lah. Okay, do not just think of inequality means you should think of this sign and then you just memorize it for no reason. You must actually know what it means. Okay, as I said, it's very important to know what it means. I actually explained a lot of things to you guys really on certain ways to see certain things. So solve the inequality, this thing. Okay, so we have this thing, yeah, and find the smallest whole number of n. Okay, you don't be scared when you see smallest whole number. It's like as if you don't understand the question yet, but no worries. Okay, what we know is that they want to find n. Okay, what is the range of n? Means what can n take up values up to? Or maybe you can say, what can be the values for n? Okay, see my sentence. I don't say what is the value for n. Okay, I say what can n be? What can n take up as values? Okay, it has a range of values. It can be maybe greater than 2. Means it can take up values from 2 to up to maybe infinity. Okay, so that is the meaning of this statement. It's not an equality equation style, but instead inequality. So what you will do is you try to isolate n as usual, because 5,000, I'll just write down the question, 6 times 6 to the power of 5 to the power of n. This n belongs to this bracket because prioritize the bracket. It belongs to the bracket. It does not belong to 5,000 because there's no n here, or because there's no big bracket here. If this big bracket is here, means this n belongs to this bracket. You get what I mean? The n will always belong to the nearest thing. Okay, so if n is nearest to the bracket, means it will cover the bracket only. You understand? If I have something like this, 2x minus 3 plus 6x squared to the power of 4, okay, it will take up value up to the bracket only. Means everything here is part of the bracket. You get what I mean? What if I have an x in front? does it include in the x power 4? It does not, okay, because this x is not part of the bracket. Okay, I repeat things like this. You might think that I keep repeating the same thing, but in fact, actually, if you do not really train your brain to keep repeating this stuff, right, in exam, you tend to make mistake. Okay, so I copy the question is greater than 10 to the power of 5. 10 to the power of 5 is basically 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 zeros. Or you can think of it as 1 has a decimal point at the back. You just move to the back by 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has 5. The decimal place has moved to the back. So it's 100,000. Okay, but that one not important yet. What we do now is we try to isolate n. Remember, I taught you the way how to isolate something is to remove one by one. We try to remove one by one. There are two things that we need to remove. One is the 5,000, one is the 5,000, and one is the 6 over 5. But we cannot move to 6. We cannot move the 6 over 5 first yet. Why? Because it's attached to power of n. Okay, whatever n is attached to, right, you usually remove it the last. So you remove 5,000 first. So what I do is I divide by 5,000 for both sides. Okay. You see, I'm dividing a positive number. Watch out, I'm dividing my positive number. So you just solve it normal, like you're solving equation. Okay, you're just solving it like normal equation. I'll tell you a condition later. What is the difference between inequality and equality? There is one condition you need to change the sign later. Okay, I'll tell you later, but for now you don't have to. Okay, so once I divide by 5,000, this 5,000 will go away, will disappear, become 1, not 0, become 1. Okay, so it becomes 6 over 5 to the power of n is greater than 100,000 divided by 5,000. Okay, so what you get is you get 6 over 5 to the power of n. You see, it's still greater. Top is greater, it's still greater here. Here also it's greater. I'm just simplifying the right hand side. 100,000 divided by 5,000. Basically, 100 divided by 5 will give you 20. Okay, use your calculator. So now, how do I isolate n? What can I do? What can you do? Okay, let's think. Okay, what can you do? You may try to think. Okay, when you reach something like this, something to the power of n gives you 20. What can you do? Okay, maybe you can say, oh, I thought you taught me before. You can to remove this inequality, I power to the power of to the power of 1 over n on the left hand side, and I power 1 over n on the right hand side. Does it work this way? Does it work this way? You see, you want to see whether it works or not. On the left hand side, what you will get? Yes, you indeed remove the power, but on the right, you introduce a new power on the right, so it doesn't help. Okay, you get what I mean? I want you to know what is the right method to use. Okay, what is the right thing to use at the right scenario? So in this case, it's not this. So I want to introduce the method to you, and you should know because we are in a logarithm chapter. So we actually tend to use a lot of log. And actually the method to solve this one, right, whenever you see, right, things inside here and things here, cannot be expressed in the same base. Usually I introduce log base 10, as I mentioned many times already. So log base 10, I can actually write it as log also, okay? This one, don't forget. So I will just write, I will use a mixture of both so that you can get used to both of them. So I'll write the newer one. I'll write log base 10 of 6 over 5 to the power of n is greater than log base 10 of 20. You see, when I write LG, I don't have to put the 10, okay? I don't have to put the 10. I repeat again, I don't have to put the 10. What I've just done is I've introduced log base 10 on both sides. You see, as I mentioned in the previous video, what I introduce on the left, I will introduce on the right, okay? So once you have this already, you'll notice that it's actually log base 10, you can actually bring down. So what will happen is you have n log base 10 of 6 over 5 greater than log base 10 of 20. All right, not very hard. So now I can actually bring this over for division, or maybe I can divide both sides with this thing. Okay, I will divide both sides with this thing. I'll divide both sides with log 6 over 5, log base 10, 6 over 5. But there's a trick here, but you need to watch out for here. You need to watch out something. You need to watch out what you are dividing or multiplying with. Only dividing and multiplying. I said for this case, we are dividing this thing, right? We know that when we calculate this value, right, we type in our calculator log 6 over 5. What do we get? We get 0.0. We get 0.079. Okay, so is this positive or negative? Is this positive or negative? It is a positive. Okay, so if you are dividing, you know that this is a positive, okay? So when you're dividing a positive number, it doesn't matter. Okay, when you're dividing a positive number, it doesn't matter. You don't have to change the sign, okay? So I will move on. I will, once I've checked it's not negative already, I can straight away shift. I can straight away divide it. This one will disappear. So n is greater. You see, the greater sign did not change, okay? The greater sign did not change. So what I'm left with is log base 10, 20 over log base 10, 6 over 5. Okay, you type in your calculator, you will get n is greater than log 20 is log 20 divided by log 6 over 5. Okay, you get 16.4. Let's just say it's 16.4. Okay, but the question actually asks us, what is the smallest whole number of n? Means it must be a whole number and it must be smallest. Okay, so if we fulfill these two conditions based on this range that we have found, we can get the correct answer. So since it must be the smallest one, and okay, what does this statement mean? I must explain to you first. It means that n can take up anything bigger than 16.4. Okay, 16.5 can, 16.6 can, but they said the condition it must be a whole number. So the next whole number after 16 is automatically 17. Okay, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, as it goes up along and along. But they want the smallest one, so we pick 17. Okay, because 17 is the smallest whole number that suits this range. Okay, I hope you understand this this part. Okay, a minute now. Wait, a minute now. Let me write down something first. Okay, so this is the way to solve this question. It's very easy to solve this question. Okay, it's always the same method, but you have to watch out here only. This part, I put triple star. Why? Because there is a possibility the sign will change, you know. This sign did not change, but there's a possibility it will change, the sign will change. I'll tell you when the sign will change. The sign will change when sign of inequality will change when we are dividing both sides by, or multiplying, okay? Dividing or multiplying. Only dividing or multiplying, not times and plus. Plus, if you shift over, minus doesn't matter. Plus and minus doesn't matter. Only multiplying and dividing by a negative number. Okay? So you must know what kind of log will give you a negative number. For example, if I have n times log base 10 of 0.2 lesser than whatever log base 10 of 2. You see, when you want to divide with this thing, right, you must check whether this is a negative or positive number. I teach you a trick to know. 1B is, okay, given that, I don't want to copy the question already, okay? Given that, okay, now it's 5,000, 2 over 3 to the power of n is lesser than 1,600. Find the smallest possible value of positive integer n. You see, it's the same thing, okay? So we try to solve it, okay? We try to solve, then we see how to set the condition at last. So as usual, you try to divide both sides with 5,000. Okay, what do you get is you can cancel this one, become 1. 2 over 3 to the power of n is lesser than 1,600 divided by 5,000. Okay, so this is, okay, never mind first. Then now what we do is we log base 10 both sides. We log base 10, 2 over 3 to the power of n is lesser than log base 10, 1,600 divided by 5,000. All right, so as usual, we shift the n downwards, and log base 10, 2 over 3 is lesser than, all this shifting, don't have to change the sign yet, log base 10, 1,600 over 5,000. Okay, you might want to ask me, sir, do we have to, I learned law of logarithm, do we need to split this one into this one minus this one? Because we learn, right, if we have something division in the content of the log, what we do is we can change it to log base 10, 1,006 minus log base 10, 5,000. We can do that. But we don't have to. Why? Because our purpose is to use our calculator. Correct or not? We are not solving it. We are solving it. We are not simplifying it. The question is not asking us to find the simplest form or anything. So what we do, right? We just, since it's just given us value, it's not unknown. We should use 1006 divided by 5000, type in the calculator. You get one value. Then you try to log base 10 of the answer. Log that answer. Okay, to get this answer here. Okay. So now what I do is I'm going to divide both sides with log base 10 23. Okay, divide with log base 10 20 top 23. Oh my god, log base 10 2 over 3. Okay, so you see, that's the trick I told you. When the content of the log is between 0 and 1. All right, so when we have log base 10, right, and the content, right, is actually between 0 and 1. What we know is that this thing will give us negative value already. Okay, so we calculate first. Log base 10 2 over 3 is actually what? You calculate this value first. Okay, log 2 over 3 is equals to, you see, you will get in a calculator negative 0.176. Okay, so it's a negative value. So what you do is, when you move to the next step, right, what you want to do is, when you divide already, this one you cancel, correct or not? So you left with n only. This one I draw in the box so that you don't get confused. So you're left with n. So this sign will change to greater. Okay, this is a very important step I want you to notice. It will change to greater than what? Log base 10 of 1600 divided by 5000 divided by log base 10 2 over 3. Okay, to know that this is negative, I just change the sign. Okay, I just change the sign. But whatever it is, other than that, you just solve normally, like calculator, how you do normally in your calculator. So you get n is greater than, maybe, let me check. Wait a minute, yeah. Okay, so you get 2.81, I think. If I didn't calculate wrongly, you get 2.81. All right, so what is the question asking? They said that they want the smallest possible value, and it must be a positive integer. Smallest possible value of positive integer. So what you do is, you want to find the smallest positive value and positive integer. So this value, you must know that it starts from 3 onwards. Okay, n can be 3, 4, 5, because of they want positive integer. Integer basically means it's a number. Okay, it's like a whole number. It's not decimal and fraction. So can be 3, 4, 5, blah 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 blah. Starts from 3, not start from 2. Okay, because the condition set already, n must be bigger than 2.81. So it cannot be 2. It must start from 3. So what is the smallest number for this range? Is actually 3. Okay, so n is equals to 3. This is your answer. This is just working for you to think of it. 2, number 1A and B. This is a very, very common question. 5 marks, 3 marks. It's always the same step if you don't make a mistake. Don't forget, change sign, changing sign, condition. Don't forget this. Okay, so now we move to 1B. Let me resize this one first. Okay, I just leave it here so that there's a thing. Okay, so no, not 1B. Let's move on to question number 2. Question 2 is about solving. It's another type of question. Okay, I give you different type of question on. Okay, type. This is another type also. So question 2 type, right, is basically you need to use it using solve it using quadratic equation. Quadratic type. Okay, quadratic. Okay, you see, I focus on the type, as I mentioned many billion times. Okay, it's the type of question. All right, so what I want to do now is I look at A first. The A is what? X minus 4 third x. Okay, third x is basically a root x. I call it. Okay, it doesn't matter. It's just a name, square root of x, basically. So how do I solve this? Okay, when you see something like this, right? When you notice something like this, right? You see this x to the power of. Okay, let's see how we solve this. When you see this is like power of 1, and then this is like the smaller power. Why? Because x square root x is actually x to the power of half, and this is like x to the power of 1. When you see things like this, right, you see this power is 2 times the power of this, right? You can use quadratic. You understand? Try to think of it. If this is power 1, this is power half, 1 is 2 times bigger than half. Okay, because half times 2 is 1. So when you see patterns like this, you must immediately track it is a quadratic type question. Okay, now for example, if you have a quadratic equation, right, minus 3x minus 2 equals to 0. You see now, x has a power of square. This x has a power of 1. You see this 2 is actually 2 times bigger than this 1. So actually the concept is that lah, huh? So if you see the power is 2 times bigger here, you use the quadratic method. So how do you use quadratic method? You use substitution, okay? How do you use substitution? What do you use substitution with? Okay, basically what do you substitute with is you want to make it look something like something with a square, then something like x squared minus something x, then you get a number, then equals to 0. You want to express in something like this. You don't want to see the square root, it's very ugly. Okay, to make it simple for us. So we can use another variable. We can use like m. Okay, we take m as example. So we know that this power is 2 times bigger than this. So what we do is we let this one be the smaller power. Okay, we see we let square root x, because we know the square root x is a smaller one, right? The smaller one, smaller power one. So we let square root x is equals to a variable, simply a variable m, or maybe p, or you like b because you like Brian. Okay, you can be anything. Then what you do is you know that your x will be what? X will be what? X will be m squared. Do you agree or not? Do you agree that x will be your m squared? How do I know? It's because I remove this square root. So when I remove this square root, I square both sides. I square here, I square here. So this one will cancel the square root, and this one left with m squared. On why I can cancel the square root, I mentioned many times already before this, so I won't mention again. Okay, so I get x equals to m squared. So I get these two substitution. So you might ask me why I want to get these two substitution. The reason why is because I want to substitute this one into here, and then this one into here. You get what I mean? I want to substitute inside. So later you see it's going to be very beautiful. You see how? So now I substitute x with what? X is equals to m squared. As we have worked out, m squared is minus 4 times this thing. This thing has now become m because we let it be m. We let the small one be m. No, it's left with m. After that, the 5 I bring to the left, it becomes minus 5. Or I minus both sides with 5 lah. In other words, equals to 0. So how do you solve this? Use your calculator, use solve quadratic. If you're not sure, leave in the comment section below and I try to make a video on it. All right, what's the correct step to not lose marks in this? So what you do is actually you factorize it. X minus 5, x plus 1 is equals to 0. So you get x equals to 5, m equals to -1, not x, yeah, m, sorry. My apologies. So you have solved m is equals to 5. Do you think this is the final answer? No, it's not the final answer. Okay, why is it not the final answer? It's because, why is it not the final answer? It's because this is m, but they want you to find x because they ask you to solve the equation, and the equation is in terms of x. Can you see? So what you do is we resubstitute back. Okay, we see how since we know that m is actually square root x, right? According to this one, according to the first substitution, we know that. So we know that square root x is equals to 5. Then we also know that square root x is also equals to -1. It's still quite simple, right? We reach this stage, okay? We reach this stage. How do I know this thing? It's because of this substitution. Don't forget, m is actually your square root x now. Think of it. So m is square root x. M is square root x. Okay, that's the meaning of substitution. I'm substituting something to equal to something else. So it's easier to solve. The purpose is to make it easier to solve only, all right? So what do I do now? Okay, is you see, so square root x equals to 5. How do I solve it? I square both sides. I square both sides. What do I get? This square and square root will cancel. You left with x is equals to 5 squared, which is 25. Okay, this is a trick. This is a tricky thing. Don't forget to write down. If I were you, I would immediately write down. This is a tricky thing. Okay, because you might follow my method. Oh, I square both sides. So I have x equals to 1. But this is wrong. For the purpose of memorizing it only lah. Actually, what you do is you straight away when you square root something, you get a negative number. You straight away ignore the answer. There's no answer for this. There's no solution for this. Okay, there's no solution for this question, for this part of the answer. So if there is no solution, and if you want to know why, right, what I do is I give you a task lah. For those of you who are wondering, right, why there's no solution, right? What you do is you go to graphing calculator. Okay, maybe you can use Desmos or GeoGebra or whatever it is, Desmos, okay? So what you do now is I want you to think, okay? So you try to, because square root x equals to -1, so square root x plus 1 is equals to 0. This is only for those who are interested. So you try to plot this graph. You try to plot this graph on the left-hand side. Okay, you try to plot this one. You see, you have x-axis and y-axis. So after you plot the graph, like, I don't know what the graph look like. The graph will most probably look something like this. Okay, once you have plotted the graph already, right, you see whether this blue graph got intersect with the x-axis or not. Because when you equal to 0, right, in other chapters I'll teach you, it actually means what is the intersection with the x-axis. You're actually finding the intersection with x-axis. That's actually the actual meaning when you're solving equation for x. So actually, right, you will notice that this graph does not intersect the x-axis at all. Okay, this is for you who want to know the reason why. You try to work it out yourself and find it. I give you the steps ready to do it. All right, so what you do is, right, you just ignore this answer, you understand? So you have x is equals to 25. As simple as that, all right? It's not very hard, this one. It's just some tricks. When you square root something, you get a negative number, don't forget. When you square root something, you get a negative number, don't forget, you ignore the answer, okay? Okay? When you square root a negative something also, of course, you won't get the answer. When you square root a negative number, also, of course, it will straight away give you complex number. It will straight away give you no solution, straight away no real roots or no real solution or no real answer. No real answer, write down if you want to, no real answer, no real solution, or no real roots. They all mean the same thing. And why they call it roots is basically why I explained to you just now. What do you mean when you equal to 0? It's actually the intersection between the x-axis and the graph itself. So actually that means that is actually the roots. The roots of it basically is something like you're planting a tree, It's something like you're planting a tree on the x-axis. Okay, when you're planting a tree on x-axis, I briefly explained to you in quadratic chapter, I explained. So you're planting a tree on x-axis. So you think of it, why they call it the root? Because the root starts from the ground, correct or not? The root starts from the ground here. Okay, the root is actually the thing that cuts the ground. Okay, if the graph is something like this, it has 2 roots. If the graph is like this, it does not have any roots because it doesn't cut the ground. Okay, if the graph is down there, also it doesn't have a root. If the graph is like this, it also doesn't have a root because the root actually means, right, the intersection between the graph and the x-axis itself. Okay, so these are all the same thing: roots, answer, solution, no real roots. Okay, when you square a negative number, there's no real roots. Okay, so when you see this, right, normally you just ignore it, just forget about it. Okay, because it will end up in no answer, mathematical error. You can try to type in your calculator, square root -4, what do you get? Okay, so that is A. Okay, B, I will leave it homework for yourself. But what you got to do is I want you to think of a way to express it into something like m squared minus 7m equals to 18. You see not how I transform this one to this one. What substitution I need to use? Okay, just basically it's very easy. You assume, let's just use the word let. Let x squared is equals to m. So when I let x squared equals to m, this one will become this one. Then x power 4 will become m squared because I square both sides, Okay, so it becomes m squared. Okay, so when I have m squared, I know that this one will replace this one. So when we have this one, the reason why we do this is because this is way easier to present, way easier for us to solve. We can choose not to substitute also and just solve from here, but it's very hard to solve because we are used to solving quadratic. Okay, so what we do is we substitute with a third variable, with another variable. For this case is m. So I have m squared minus 7m equals to 18. You see, it looks better. It's in quadratic. I know quadratic. Okay, for this one, right, it's maybe harder. People might tend to make careless mistakes. So once you are done with this thing, you just solve for m. Find what is m. Okay, once you have found what is m already, I think I should go through with you also, actually. I go through with you first. Okay, what you do is you let m equals to x squared. Why? Because you want to make this one as power of 1. So you just make it to m power of 1. Then you have m squared is equals to x power 4. Okay, so what you do now is you have this equation, right? So you solve m squared minus 7m minus 18 equals to 0. You solve this, what do you get? Okay, you use a calculator as I said. Here this is all about quadratic. I don't want to mention first. So you get m minus 9, m plus 2 equals to 0. You get m equals to 9, m equals to minus 2. Okay, the reason why I want to discuss is because So you have got m already. Now you have got m as your answer, but you don't forget they're asking you to solve for x, not m. So what you do is you got to replace back. First, you change x to m world. Now you change m to x world. You must change back, okay? Don't forget, because they want to answer in x. So what you do is you have x to the power of, what is m? Refer back, what is m? M is x squared. So x squared equals to 9, x squared equals to -2. Yeah, this is the case. So how do I solve for the first solution of the answer? I square root both sides. Here, when I square root both sides, this square and the square root will cancel. And then I have x, I'm left with x. On the right, what I have is, I have a square root 9. What is square root 9? Square root 9, don't forget, when you square root the number, you have plus minus of the answer, plus minus 3. Okay, I hope you understand. You have plus minus 3, okay? You have two answers for this one. X equals to plus minus 3. And on the right-hand side, you square on the left-hand side, square on the right-hand side. What you get is you cancel, as usual, you get x is equals to square root of -2. As I mentioned just now, when you square root a negative number, there's no answer, no solution. Okay, or you don't say no solution, you say no real roots or no real solution. You can mention this. The reason why we use the word real, right, is because actually indeed there's solution, but the solution is complex, which you don't learn, okay? So there's no real solution. It's fake. You can think of it as fake. The solution is fake, okay? So you just write no real solution, or you just write no solution. I think your teacher will accept it. You understand? So this is actually, you can ignore this answer. So your final answer is x is equals to 3, x equals to -3, because there are two answers for this one. All right, I hope you get it. This is actually all for part 2. I hope you can understand well what I'm teaching you. So I can move to part 3. Okay, part 3, I will just do one question. Part 3, question 1 now. So this is another type of question I want you to pay focus to, okay? This is a type of question I want you to know. Normally they give you, this is basically, I put in part 3 is because it's a long question. It's basically, it's not hard, it's very simple. The one that is hard is part 4. Part 4 is very difficult. I would say part 4 is very difficult. Okay, so part 3 is normal questions, very normal questions, but it's just long. Okay, you just need to know how to analyze the questions. Okay, so for part 3, number 1, I will do number 1 only. So read the question. Kampong X has a population of 2,000 people, okay, at the beginning of 2010. And the population after a period of 10 years is this one. Okay, means this is like an equation. Okay, they give you an equation. This is like the equation of it. Okay, equation to find after n years how much population will I have. You understand what I mean? So this is the equation that they gave you already. So what you need to do is actually read the question first. Okay, find the population of Kampong X at the beginning of 2020. Means, right, they told you, what are the information? They told you that 2010 you have 2,000 people. Okay, so 2020 you want to find how many people, and the equation they give you is 2,000 times 1.1n will give you the population. Okay, so you have to use this thing. Okay, so they want a beginning of 2020. So beginning of 2020, what is n? Okay, you must know what is n first. Basically the n is basically after a period of n years, means after how many years this population will change. I give you an example. For example, after 2 years, if you substitute 2 here, what is the new population you get? That is your answer. If after 3 years, 20, because it started from 2010, so after 3 years is 20 of 2013, okay? 2013, what is the population? How do you find the population? You just substitute 3 here. That is the meaning. N is basically after n years, it will give you the new population if you just plug in the values into this formula. This is the idea of it. Okay, so what you have to do is, now they say after how many years? 2020 is after how many years? From 2010 is 10 years. Okay, so 10 years, yeah, 10 years. So you plug 10 years into n equals to 10. So what you do is, basically the population at 2020 of Kampong X will be 2,000. Don't confuse this 2,000. 2,000 is the part of the equation. It's not a year, okay? 2,000 times with 1.1 to the power of 10. Okay, so this is very easy to calculate. You just use your calculator and calculate. Okay, just type in your calculator 2,000 times 1.1 to the power of 10. You just type 1.1, then type this symbol. This symbol, you notice this symbol one is power sign in your calculator. Find this symbol, type it 1.1 to the power of, then you press 10 equals to, then you times with 2,000 equals to, you notice it's going to be The answer is going to be 5187.5. The population will be this. So you can round it up to 5188 lah. Okay. That is A. Okay, now we solve for B. For question B, right, it's exactly the same type of question, but you actually flip the question. Why? Because now instead of giving you the n, which is how many years later, they give you the population instead. They give you the population. And after they give you the population, they want you to find what in which year. Okay. So now, in other words, right, the formula for the calculation is population is equals to 2000 times 1.1 to the power of n. Okay. So now they've given you the population is 20,000. Okay. They want you to find n, but read the question carefully. They ask you, at the beginning of which year the population will exceed. They want exceed. They don't want exactly 20,000. They want exceed. Exceed 20,000 means, right, after which year it will exceed, the population must be greater than. Now what you want to do is you want the population to be greater than 20,000. Why greater? Because they want to exceed. They want to exceed 20,000. Exceed 20,000 means they want to be more than 20,000. That's why I put a greater sign here. You understand what I'm doing? So what is the formula for P? Is on the right hand side, right? Because they're equal to each other. Remember, equivalent statement, they are equal to each other. So this one will come down here. So 22,000 times 1.1 power of n is greater than 20,000. Okay, as I say, why I substitute P with this one? Because P is this one based on the formula. Okay, it's greater. Now, do you realize that this thing is exactly what you learned in 1A and 1B for part 2? You realize it's exactly the same kind of question. Okay, you solve it exactly the same, but you just got to watch out for the trick. Remember, I told you when you have to change the inequality sign. Okay, so we see. Okay, so what I do is, normally questions like this, I have to log base 10 for both sides. Okay, so I log base 10 of, I write bigger, log base 10 of, no, I don't log base 10 first. My mistake, sorry. First of all, what you do is you got to remove the 2,000 first. You divide with 2,000. You divide with 2,000. Then now what you do is you cancel the 2,000 on the left, and then you rewrite it first. What you have is you have 1.1 to the power of n, because this 2,000 disappeared already, is greater than this one. You cut 3 zeros, you left with 20. Am I right? 20,000, correct. So you have 1.1 to the power of n greater than 20. So once you have this stage, right, you watch out. You have something to the power of something equals to something, and you cannot change the base anymore. What you do is use the help of log 10. Remember, I told you log 10 is always your final weapon. So you log 10 both sides, 1.1 to the power of n greater than log base 10. Whatever I do to the left, I do to the right to ensure they are equal also. Log base 10, 20. So what I do is I shift the n to the front. Okay? I shift the n to the front to make it times n times log base 10, 1.1 greater than log base 10, 20. So at this stage, I told you, remember, you have to check, because you want to divide both sides with log base 10 to the power of, log base 10, 1.1. You want to divide both sides with log base 10, 1.1. You want to, okay, but don't divide first. Check first. Check whether log base 10, 1.1 is a negative number or not. Positive or negative. So if you check, you type log 1.1, you will get 0.0414. This is actually a positive number. So if it is a positive number, don't have to change sign. You understand? Means if this is greater to, you let it be greater to. You don't have to change to smaller to, okay? You don't have to change to the opposite. You remain it. You understand what I mean or not? So what I do now is you have n, so you can straight away divide already. When you have, I rewrite the step, you have n log base 10 of 1.1 greater than log base 10 of 20. Okay, so I divided both sides with log base 10 of 1.1 divided by log base 10 of 1.1. So I can cancel straight away. Okay, why? Yeah, you can cancel straight away because they are dividing by the same thing. You're left with n only on the left hand side. And the sign is the most important thing. Do I have to change to smaller than? Don't have to. You just follow the sign here is bigger than. You follow here bigger than. Then you calculate this in your calculator. Just type in your calculator. Log 20 divided by log 1.1. Okay, 31.4. Okay, so I repeat again. To know whether you want to change sign is you look at log base 10 1.1. Is it negative or positive? Because, right, if you are dividing it with a negative number, you have to change the sign, you have to change the sign to smaller than. You understand what I mean? If this is a negative number, okay? You see, all the way I'm talking about log base 10 1.1 only. I didn't talk about log base 10 20. Why? Because I'm dividing with log base 10 1.1 to remove this one to isolate the n. Correct or not? So that's what I'm doing. So I don't have to care about log base 10 20. Log base 10 20, you do it later when you are dividing here. Okay? 31.4. I have to write down the answer first. Okay? So the question is asking, at which year? So you cannot say 31.4 years later. They want a year, they don't want the 0.4. Okay, it's basically the whole number. So in what year? So it started from 2010, right? 2010. So on what year they will get, they will exceed 20,000 is when the year exceeds 2041.4. Okay, 2041.4 year. But it's not a year, 2041.4. It's not a year, okay? But in this year, it will actually hit 20,000. So if you exceed this year, it's definitely 20,000. It's definitely 20,000. So the correct answer is 2042. Why 2042, not 2041? Because 2041, it still hasn't exceeded 20,000. How do I know? Because it shows here already. It shows the answer here. N must be greater than 31.4 years later. So 31.4 years later is actually 2041.4, year 2021.4. So year 2021.4 only it reaches 20,000 population. So before that, 2041 hasn't reached 20,000 yet. That's why I chose 2042 instead of 2041. You understand? This is the correct answer. Okay? So this is basically what's my understanding to you lah. Okay, okay, now I want to give you explanation. Okay, explanation on, some of you might ask, why when you divide or for inequality, why divide both sides or times both sides? Why when you times or divide both sides with negative number, you need to change sign? All these things don't accept what I tell you. You try to prove it yourself. You need to change sign. Okay, why? I explain to you why. Actually, there are other conditions you change sign on, but I just explain to you this why. Why? Because for example, if you have negative 2x is equals to is greater than 8. Okay, when you divide by 2, you prove yourself. When you divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, you get x, you get negative 4 here. Okay? Is it true that x is greater than negative 4? Is it true or not? Okay, I prove to you why is it? Okay, because you just take example, negative x is greater than 3. Okay, negative x is greater than 3. Negative x is greater than 3. Let's just say if I don't change the sign. For example, this one I divide by negative 1, I divide by negative 1. So if I don't change the sign, right, I will just, wrong one, this is a wrong one. I better write down first. You skip my video, then you won't realize. So this will be x, because I want to isolate the x from negative. If I don't change the sign, right, I put greater than, it will become greater than negative 3. Correct or not? So what is an example of greater than negative 3? For example, is negative 2 and negative 1. I just give example, negative 2 and negative 1. So you want to prove that this is wrong, right? What you do is you resubstitute back this one. This is your answer, you got what? So you try to check whether it's correct or not. You try to resubstitute this x back into this one and see whether the equation works or not. So I check for negative 2, because original equation I have negative x is greater than 3. So if I put negative 2 into the x, I will have negative 2 is greater than 3. I have 2 is greater than 3. Is this correct or not? It is wrong, because 2 is supposed to be smaller than 3. You understand what I mean? That is why actually when you divide by a negative number, you flip the sign, okay? This sign is supposed to be flipped to negative, smaller than. This is the correct one. Okay, and on the right hand side here is just basically the proof to you. You try to prove yourself that is wrong. You basically follow first. It's okay to do the wrong step. Then at last you use the wrong answer to contradict your first equation. This is a way for you to learn also lah. If you are the type of thinker that you want to learn more lah. So if you do not want, then this part, you can just ignore it. Okay, this is for the people who want to prove for themselves, to understand why. Okay, so this is all for part 2 and part 3, okay? So there are many types of questions I want you to focus on, and I've included them all here already. So you've got to pay focus on every single question I've included here, because I think I've provided quite enough questions already for you to do it. You understand? So that's it for the video today, all right? I hope you're learning well, and keep it up if you're learning well with me. Okay? I'll be very glad if you can share your results with me one day, that you 99 or 98. Okay, it doesn't matter. That's not for everyone, okay? Set your own goals and achieve it. And tag me. Don't forget to tag me once I expose my Instagram one day. All right, so I see you in the next video on part 4. Oh, that is crazy. Before part 4, get prepared with part 1, part 2, part 3 first. Then only you go part 4, okay? Because part 4 is going to be very difficult. I say first, it's very difficult. It's not difficult in a sense that it's difficult. It's difficult because you cannot spot the pattern. You haven't tried it before. You get what I mean? So what I want you to do is to prepare mentally first, that you're going to see a lot of crazy things. Not very crazy lah, okay? But some crazy things. Then get prepared. Don't come in the next video when you're asleep or when you're not focusing, okay? Because next video is going to be very tough. You need focus. All right, with that said, I end this video for part 2 and part 3. I see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe, all right? Bye, see you.